What's up, everybody? This is BakaBites. I'm Frankfurter. That's Magically Average. Today, we are going to talk about what makes something peak, aka what makes an anime peak, because that word has been thrown around a hell of a lot in the past. We'll say past year or so. I feel like that word has really kind of risen in popularity to describe anime in the sense of like the show is really good, but what makes it something peak? Because people say that season 4 of Attack on Titan is peak, and you and I would highly disagree with it.
People say that
Um,
every season of Attack on Titan is peak. Every episode is peak.
that's true. So it's one of those things. Is it like episode based? Is it season based? Is it like show overall based? Because I feel like if you're saying peak with like the actual definition, it is like the highest peak or the highest point of a mountain essentially. Yeah, I know the peak of a mountain. It's the
I was
highest
like,
point of a
do you mean like the definition? Well, I guess
yes.
one way of defining peak would
To
be
define peak would be the highest point of like a mountain,
the
essentially.
pinnacle of something.
The pinnacle, correct. So like what makes it? Is it the overall structure? Is it episode by episode? Because like you can say an episode is peak and then the next episode be absolute dog water.
hmm
So does that still mean that the show is peak, or is it just, somewhere in between?
Well,
No?
that's the debate, right? That's the question, right?
Right. That's the question. I'm asking you the
Well,
question, what makes it?
I, so to address the first part, because you were saying like, can something be peak if it's just the episode or just a season, or it has to be the entirety of the show? And I don't think peak defining an anime as being peak, I don't think it's limited to just the anime in its totality. I think you can look at an episode and say like, okay, that was the best episode of this anime. You can look at a season and say, okay, that was the best episode of this or best season of this anime. But when you look at an anime, you're comparing it to all the other anime, right? I feel
Correct.
like that's where all these people come out of the woodworks and like crawl up through the sewers of Twitter or
Jesus
whatever, and they're like, "This is peak," and then they like slurm back down, and it's just to cause chaos because everyone has opinions when it comes to anime. Um, but like, I think the way to differentiate it is if you're looking at something that is, again, we're gonna say peak a lot, and I'm gonna get sick and tired of it, so I'm gonna probably try to come up with different ways of phrasing it. We'll just
You and
say
I
like the
both
best of the
hate the
best.
word peak.
I
You and
don't
I
like it.
both do not like this word, and
I hate
that's
it.
one of the reasons why we are discussing it is because
Yeah.
it is tossed around all willy nilly like that. It's lost kind of its meaning in our
Yeah.
opinion. So well,
It,
that begs the question: what makes something peak? But
yeah.
yeah, no,
But
continue.
it was
Sorry.
like, yeah, it's like the whole thing of like, oh, he's the goat. That person's the goat. She's the goat. It's like, okay, great. Like we can say this word to oblivion, and it's eventually going to lose its meaning. But you have to define what it means to be the greatest of all time, or in this case, what it means to be peak. And I think it comes down to a number of different characteristics, which is what makes it hard. Again, things don't get like the best of the best awards very often. It's limited. That's why there's only one anime of the year every year. That's why there's only one like best season of anime. There's only one like there there's a reason behind it. Now you can argue like we have all the time when it comes to the anime awards why they're wrong,
God, they
but
usually are
and they
so.
very much are. 99% of the time they're wrong, but that doesn't defeat the fact that there is a singular award for an anime being awarded the best of the year, or a video game being best of the year, or a movie being best of the year. Like it's limited to one instance for one show. But nowadays it feels like every other show that comes out in a season is peak. Oh man, this
Yeah.
this is peak isekai anime, or this you're not going to get any action better than this peak anime right here. And it's like, let's dial it back and figure out what makes something peak. And I have a number of criteria that goes into making something peak.
Do tell.
But I mean, I'm going to truncate it down to five because it is. You could kind of branch off from these five and
Can I
pick out.
Can I guess as to what
They're
these
not.
five are?
Yeah, they're not that hard. But go
Okay.
ahead.
Animation, probably one in
Yeah.
there. Storytelling
Yep.
or plot or whatever you want to call it.
Uh,
Music. Oh, plot and storytelling are separate.
we're gonna get into that.
Okay. Music.
Yeah, it's kind of.
And then character building.
Yeah, pretty much. You got the general like topics, but yeah, to define them down, it is. I think first we're gonna hit on the easy ones. That's character development. I'm gonna say instead of animation, we're gonna say design. So I think design
Okay.
is big because again, I don't like boasting something because of its animation. Because I think in today's day and age, again, it's not blanket. There are still many outliers. We have a couple this
Yes.
season alone where you can mock the animation quality, but I would say design is more important because something might look really pretty, but it might not match the tone of the anime, or it might not fit well with the environment that it's trying to portray, right?
Right.
Like something that's very happy-go-lucky shouldn't be put into a very dreary and depressing anime story. But that
Which is
happens sometimes. It's really, it can be very jarring. Sometimes it's on purpose. Okay, there's a
which
number.
is why Madoka Magica is great.
Yeah. No, it's done if it's done with a purpose, then sure. Again, it's always there's always variances. Nothing is objectively going to be truthful for all of these. But so there's character design, there's just design, there's character development, design. You said music. I kind of broaden it out to sound design, and then within
Okay.
sound design we have music, we've got voice acting, right? Because voice
Yeah,
acting
yeah.
does make a difference. I do, again, these are all the characteristics I look for when I label something as peak. Okay, if I'm just looking at an anime as an anime, I'm not gonna like dive deep into why this voice actor ruined it for me and why that's downgrading it. I'm gonna be like, the voice acting was decent, but I still give it this grade, right? But when we're
Right.
when we're labeling something as peak, I think voice acting is a huge factor. I mean, to do a quick divergence. Just look at like the voice actors that Studio Ghibli gets for all their movies, for the English voice actors. They're
Yeah.
huge names, huge, right?
Yeah.
And
The
it's
list for the newest one is just
oh,
absolutely insane.
it's astonishing how many amazing actors and voice actors they've gotten for their new movie, The Boy and the Heron. Like for English voice actors. And there's plenty of there's incredible Japanese voice actors too. I just don't remember their names a lot. Sorry, but the English
As
ones
if we
I
can
recognize
as if
real
we
quick.
can remember like character names, let alone voice acting
Right,
names.
right, exactly. So yeah, I mean that goes in, and I group that kind of within sound design, and then the two that you kind of put together, but I have separated for a very specific reason.
Okay, because yeah,
The
I'm
last
interested in.
the last two is plot
Mhm.
and storytelling, because again, the way because I know everyone's going to be like, they're the same fucking thing. Fine, that's how you define it. Cool.
I think you
Just
could
listen.
go.
Yeah,
I think you're thinking storytelling, maybe pacing. Pacing might be a better word.
that goes into storytelling. Plot,
Okay.
plot, in my opinion, again, plot is. Let's go with the adventures. What's it called? The adventurer's circle. The. My English teacher would be so furious with me right now. I can see her just glaring at me, all 5 foot nothing ever. So in adventure, in any sort of adventure book, it doesn't even have to be adventure tales. It's really just any sort of novel that focuses on a main character that goes through turmoil and has to triumph over it. Right? It's the hero's journey. Jesus, it just came back to me like a lightning strike.
Better late than
So
never.
yeah, the hero's journey is something that you can really apply to a lot of different tales. And again, they're most of the time fiction, and they don't have to. They're not exclusive to just like adventure and action and stuff. It's kind of all expansive to things that match sort of the way in which this is told. And it's that we have our character who faces an immediate threat, who then gets a call to adventure, who then faces some sort of adversity, who overcomes said adversity, and then at the end of the day is victorious. That's a very, very crude and simplistic way of going through it. Again, my English teacher would be standing over me with all 5 foot of her and
That'd
trying
be
to
you'd get a C for that
scold. Yeah,
explanation.
yeah, basically. But that's sort of the crux of what the adventurer's journey is. Okay,
Right.
that is the plot. Storytelling is how we go through the adventurer's journey. How you take me on this ride with these characters as we progress through their all these different events that they take place, and how they overcome said events, and how they grow, and maybe there's a couple of extra bumps in the way, like a friend dies, oh boo-hoo, but how you get beyond that, and then at the end you have your climactic moment, and then the ending, and sort of the ending piece is you come back home, right? That's the end of your
The
journey's
homecoming,
adventure. Is yep, you have your homecoming, where you return back someone who's grown and matured and has learned and experienced many of things, and that is what storytelling piece is.
Right.
Is guiding me along that journey. Again, the plot is just, here's what's going to happen, here's where we're going to take you, this and that. But the storytelling piece is, here's what's happening along the way, right? Like
Okay.
it's
I see what you're getting at.
yeah. Again, and people are going to be like, that's you dummy, that's literally, you just said the same thing over and over again. And sure, fine, if that's how you want to interpret that, great. I really don't give two hoots. But that is, those two, I think, in my mind, are the most important characteristics of what makes an anime peak. Okay, and I'll give you an example, and I think you can be in agreement with me. I'm going to start
Okay.
from the lowest tier and kind of go up. Okay,
Sure.
design. And
Sure.
we're going to use Attack on Titan. Okay, because this is a prime
Okay.
example. Prime example. All right, and we're not looking at episode to episode. We're not looking at season to season. We're looking at the entirety of the anime in its totality. We're going to look at it holistically. What makes this anime peak, if at all? Okay, design. I think we can both agree. Perfect. I think it gives off this sense of like olden times mixed with like this like not feudal, but you know, it's more rustic, it's more
It's
down
almost
to
like
earth.
Wild West.
Yeah. And at no point, at least when I was watching it from the very first episode, do you feel at ease. There's always tension. There's always this this sense of dread, anxieties filling the air, and that can be felt through the design of the show, through characters' expressions, through the scenery, through the environment, and we'll kind of dive into the next piece, which is sound design. I think the sound design's remarkable. The music choices, the music choice fits well with the time period too, right? It's very, I don't want to say medieval, but it has like this operic. That's not a word, Tyler. This very
Operatic.
yeah, like
Like an
it's
opera style.
yes. I think that coupled with just the manner in which they do the fights, a lot of the voice acting too is really good, in both English and Japanese too, I will say, because I've watched it in both. They're both really great. It all plays really well into, again, the feeling and the tone of the anime. Character development, I don't think we have too much of an issue, except for probably Eren. But you see the growth. I mean, you go from these kids who are living kind of a peaceful, tranquil life for the most part, right? There's still the ever existing like threat of Titans that you hear about in the first episode, and that you kind of gather as the anime progresses too, in flashbacks. But like it's you go from kids who are just happy as they are to getting thrust into the special core unit to fight off the Titans, and then that leads into like how they've just become beaten to a pulp, right? You see growth in their maturity as well, both their mental and emotional maturity. And it comes with a majority of the characters that we meet. The fucking lot of them, because there's a shit ton and I can never remember their names, right? But they all have moments, and they all have growth experiences, and they all kind of go through their own mini adventures, journeys, on top of the very long and drawn out ones of both Eren and Mikasa. Now you can argue that Eren has like an anti-hero, right?
Right. Which,
like
yeah,
an
but in the
antagonist.
later seasons, that's very much so.
Right. But you could argue that that's part of the journey's adventure, is that he's faced with this turmoil, and he kind of his growth period, or his triumphant moment, is realizing, oh, I have to just basically become the anti-hero. So
Right.
you have that. Now we get into the big two, which is storytelling and plot. We're going to start with plot for a very, very obvious reason, in which the plot is magnificent. It is something new. It is something extremely interesting. It is something that episode to episode, I was so excited just to learn more. I just wanted to know what was going to happen next. And very few anime do that for me, where like every single episode I was like, oh my God, what am I going to learn next? Like, what are these titans? Like, when did they get discovered? Like, where are we? Right? Like, a lot of people just neglected to kind of ask the question of where the fuck are they? Like, it seems like Germany, it's very Germanic, right? European in a sense, but like, there's no, like, we don't have, it's all fake cities, right? It's nothing that we can relate to in our world. So it's like, where are they? Like, you just want to know all these things from the very moment that the anime starts, because it starts off hot. Like, it's, again, probably one of the best opening episodes to an anime that you can get. It's up there.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And it was superb. The plot was superb. But here's where the downfall happens, at least for me. Again, everyone's going to disagree. Everyone has their own opinions, and that's great. I love hearing other people's perspectives on an anime, because it does enlighten me more into their, what they're viewing, and how they interpret things. So let me get through mine. So basically shut the fuck up for now.
I have for a very long time now.
No, that was not to you. That was to the very loud, boisterous audience.
I know what you're talking about. I've been sitting here just kind of
tell
like,
you
all
to
right,
shut up.
focus.
You're gonna get the last 20 minutes. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
But okay, so the storytelling of Attack on Titan is its biggest downfall, and I know it's a very contentious piece, because people will make the arguments that no, you just don't understand. The author had everything planned out. Here's all these little hints that are sprinkled throughout. Like, oh my gosh, there's Eren in this one scene, and there's like this flashback where he's going in the past, and oh my gosh, you couldn't have interpreted that, but the author knew. He knew all along. Spoiler alert, the author wrote the fucking story, so of course he knew what the fuck he was doing. I hate that argument. Like, oh my God, the author was like playing fucking 4D chess, and we were just playing tic-tac-toe over here. And it's like, no, duh. He's literally the one writing it. Of course he has it planned out. You think an author just one day just goes, I'm going to write a story, and then just goes chapter by chapter? No, they have it fucking fleshed out for at least 50 chapters.
Yeah.
Like, it's not crazy to think that someone would have all these twists and turns thought out. So that's besides the point. But every single season starts off at a different point in time, and it's so
First
hard
one
to
when
track.
they're kids. Second one when they're, I mean, it's straight after the first season, so I guess it's like they're teenagers / young adults. And then third season is a little bit older, and then the fourth season's like, where the fuck are we?
Yeah. They never it never is a continuation from the previous. It's we go forward.
Season 1 to season 2 is a continuation.
Yeah, that's the only continuation. But 2 to 3 is we kind of like go forward and we come backwards to tie it in. And then the fourth season is we go way forward and come backwards to tie it in. So that piece, again, we can get that past that piece. But to what you had alluded to before, that is a part of storytelling, is pacing. And I think Attack on Titan has the worst pacing out of many of the top respected anime that I've watched. Not worst pacing overall. Okay, that is far beyond it. But in terms of like anime that people highly regard, I think it has the pacing in it is some of the worst, and that directly impacts storytelling. Not only do I want to be enthralled about what happens next, I want you to be able to articulate it to me and show me in a very meticulous manner, in a very appropriate manner, how you're going to do that. And Attack on Titan started off great and slowly just petered off to the final season where we watched them fucking camp for 4 straight episodes and have a brawl by a campfire, and then they talked about their plans, and that was it. You can argue it's for setup. You can argue that they had to do it because they knew they were going to do 2 extended features at the end. You could say this and that and whatever. It doesn't defeat the fact that for no joke, like 4 episodes, we watched them go to a festival and eat pie, walk in the woods, camp out, and then talk about their plan. That is not good storytelling. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you say about the rest of it. It's not good storytelling. And it's not just that part. There's plenty of other pieces in season 2, which is why originally I dropped it for the most part, because it was a slog. It was boring. That's where like I ended up by like episode 4 when I was originally watching it going, I don't want to know what happens next. I'm genuinely bored out of my mind. What happened? Like, it's something that is completely in the hands of the author and the director of the anime too. And it's so incredibly important, especially in an anime that is so deep and impact, like there's so many layers to it. It's got a lot of moving parts. It's heavily action based, but it does have a lot of like deep, emotional pieces to it through, different characters and different traumas they've experienced. Like, there's a lot to it. So yeah, I guess you can use that as an excuse, but it doesn't defeat the fact that your storytelling beyond season 2 was pretty piss poor. Season 3 helped out a shit ton. But again, we have this weird jump where it's like, why do I care about these characters now? And why are you introducing me to this new thing with the Titans when that could have been well developed and like naturally progressed throughout the anime as opposed to just brutally inserted into like the middle of the season, and then it's like now you have to care, and it's like it's so hard for me to now, but I'm forced to.
Yeah, and I think the worst part of like this show for saying like, oh, you need to care about these characters comes near the end of season 4 part 2 where they're on the dock and not Aaron, but who's Armin. Yeah. Armin is like basically has to kill 2 old friends, and I legitimately looked it up. When was the last time we saw these 2 characters? You want to guess when?
It was like season 2, right?
Yes, it was season 2.
Yeah, when they were all on the wall or something.
Probably in like a side. They may have been in a side scene for season 3 where they had no lines and they were just walking along. They have not had a single line since season 2, and you're expected to care about them. I understand that they're saying like the bigger picture here is like Armin having to get his hands dirty and actually kill someone. But at the same time, it's just like they put more of an emphasis on like, we are your friends, we are not your enemies or whatever. That is just like Armin killing somebody and getting his hands dirty is like takes just such a back seat to just the plot or the points that they're trying to make.
But Frank, it's obvious that you missed the bigger picture and you're just nitpicking that part. It's such a poor example.
Yeah, and yet you'll nitpick every fucking little other detail to explain why it's good. It's like, I don't give a fuck if, they showed somebody's butt cheek in season 1 and season 3 their butt cheek turns back up. It's like, oh, it's the same butt cheek. It's like, whoa, who gives a fuck? I don't care. Like,
if you look closely, it has Bender's face tattooed on it. Shout out Futurama. Yeah, I mean, again, I feel like this is the level of analysis you have to get into to really determine if something is, again, I hate the word peak, but the best of the best, the cream of the crop, right? It takes a lot to get to that level. Now,
right.
Again, I'm not saying that Attack on Titan is bad. I think it's midway, right? My opinion. Plenty of people put it at the top of the list.
Overall, probably give it a. I mean, season 4 has tanked my score for it, but overall, I'd say it's probably 7.75.
Yeah, I would write right around 7.5. Right in
Yeah,
there, right in there. Which again, it's a decent score, but
I've
it's like
watched a lot worse.
right. We both have, but we've also
Yeah.
watched a lot that we think are better. Now, again, even in our list that's above Attack on Titan, I would wager that two
Oh,
two of them are peak. If I had to guess, in my opinion,
I think
that's
there are
it's
two.
not a
There are
lot.
two shows. There are two shows that I can list that are probably that I would say would be peak of anime. And number one, as much as it pains me to say it because yeah, everybody says it, it's Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Yeah,
It is a
I was
peak
in it.
show.
Yeah.
Everything about that show is wonderful.
Can I
There's almost zero downsides to it.
can I say something controversial though?
Oh boy.
I think the
Oh, you're gonna
original
say the
is also
original? Yeah.
peak. I do. I genuinely do. Because you have to keep in mind too that I started off watching that one first,
Right.
and then realized, and then read the manga. Went, what the fuck? This isn't the anime. What happened? Read it up online. Oh shit! He didn't. The author or she didn't. Excuse me. She couldn't keep up with the animation, so they had to go a different direction. And then they made an anime that followed her story, and I watched
Yeah.
that, and it was also great.
Yeah.
So.
But the second show that I can truly say, like, taking personal feelings out of it, because as much as I would love to say Cowboy Bebop, there are plenty of problems with Cowboy Bebop. There really are. Like, not every, it's not paced as well. It's not, X and Y. As much as I love the music, characters, and a lot about that show. The second show, though, Made in Abyss.
Mm.
Made in Abyss is such a phenomenal show that like people kind of overlook, and I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's because it's on High Dive or what factoid you go into of just not watching this show. It is an incredible show. Season after season, episode after episode. It is it has me like salivating for more. It is such a good show because they built the world well, they built the characters well, they gave it a great plot line to follow, and the sound is amazing. Like the sound design, the music, like everything about it is great, and the pacing is wonderful. They don't stay in one place for too long. So to me, Made in Abyss is one of those shows that like every single time it flies under the radar, but it is so fucking good. Every single time something new comes out for that show, it is so good.
Mhm.
And I think that they've not essentially caught up, but they are pretty darn caught up to where the source material is, unfortunately. That we probably won't get like any more of it for a while unless we get a movie. And even then, it's just like I'm willing to wait because it is such a great show. It
Yeah.
is a great series, and I do like hope more people watch it in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, and a clear example of why there's really no such thing as peak because everyone's opinions differ. My other one would be Cowboy Bebop. I think storytelling is, you can look at it season. I think it's harder for Cowboy Bebop because there's really no true plot to it. It is very episodic in the
Yeah.
sense that each episode is its own story. Each episode has its own purpose behind it. And in its totality, you're able to see the path in which, they took when they were writing it, when they were, doing all the choreography for how they were wanted to meld all the episodes together and things like that. It's something that I haven't seen a lot of other anime be able to accomplish like Cowboy Bebop. I think it's so unique in that factor too. Because it's I think it's hard in today's day and age to have an anime that is that's stylistically like it, both in how the story progresses, how it's written, even so, to dive deep into like music design and sound design, character design, like everything about it seemed like it was done with such a purpose, and you weren't able to see it as the viewer until like the very end. You're like, oh my gosh, I finally see it. I see like the larger picture to it. It's so unique in that regard. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure people out there probably think it's a 1 out of 10. I'm sure there's people like that. I'm sure there's people who think that it's one of the greatest pieces to ever live and they'll never watch another anime because there would never be anything better than that. There might be people like that too. I think this all just goes to show you that defining something as peak or labeling an anime as like the best of the best or the greatest of all time, it's never going to be the case. It's all subjective. And when you apply this, even like the rationale to it, like these characteristics that I arbitrarily came up with, right? This is my own personal opinion. They have
Right.
meaning to me, but I'm sure other people will be like, you just pulled those out of your ass. Here's my defining features. And we'll be like, sure, yeah, we can disagree. But it just goes to show you just how hard it is. Like it's hard to really put like a qualitative piece to a piece of medium that is so subjective.
I'd agree. I will say, what are some, like, I mean, I know we talked a lot about not Cowboy Bebop,
Attack on Titan.
Attack on Titan. Like, what are some other shows do you think that are labeled peak that you think are just like either fine or like basically just mislabeled that are not peak? Because I think, in my opinion, outside of Attack on Titan, because season 4 has just tarnished all of that.
Yeah.
To me, I would say Demon Slayer. A lot of people say Demon Slayer is peak
Yeah.
because the animation is absolutely gorgeous, which it is. But that's not the
Yeah.
only thing that goes into making something truly amazing. And as you discussed and gave kind of the guidelines, I think Demon Slayer's story is very, very basic. It follows a pretty linear path, and it's just like, cool, we're not going to deviate too far. And it sets up for very, very, not reliable, but, well, yeah, I guess basically you know what's going to happen.
It's safe.
Yes, it's very safe.
Yeah.
So, like, it follows a formula. That's what I was trying to say.
Yep.
It's very formulaic. You know what's going to happen by the end of the season.
Yep.
It's not peak, in my opinion. Is the animation fabulous? Absolutely. It's some of the best out there.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it's just fine.
Yeah. I mean, I can even go after one of my own, which is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Like, that's not peak. That's incredibly not peak. I love it to death, though.
It is very slow paced.
Yeah. No, it's incredibly slow. Stardust Crusaders could have been finished in 24 episodes, and I think it's 56, if I remember correctly. Somewhere around there.
It is.
Yeah. Like,
Something like that.
that is slow as shit. But I still love it. I still watch it to death. Like, I rewatch it. I rewatched it with my wife because I love it so much. But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna make a bold statement,
Ooh.
but I think you might agree with me in that I think a lot of people, I don't say this offensively, so please don't take it this way, a lot of casual anime fans will weigh the amount of advertising and merchandising of an anime as it being peak. So like the level of notoriety that Demon Slayer got in Japan when it released, that permeated into the United States when it came out, and people like immediately flocked to it, right? They're like, oh my God, it is amazing. It's incredible. Jujutsu Kaisen the same way. I mean, we're talking about anime that ended up having some rides at like Universal at some point. Like Demon Slayer has, Jujutsu Kaisen has, Attack on Titan has. Like, these anime are so heavily advertised throughout Japan that it's hard to avoid it when it does make its way to the United States. And I think that skews a lot of people's opinions on it. Because it's like, well, look at how popular it is. They have fucking McDonald's is doing Anya burgers. Like, how is this anime not the best of the best? Like, Jesus, this is insane. Like,
Goku
I think
can beat cancer. It's the peak.
Yeah, it has to be. Like, I think that is a huge factor when people label something as being peak. Because, like, I mean, for us, Full Metal Alchemist is older, right?
Yeah.
But Made in Abyss is season 2 just recently
new.
came out, right? Is it season
2
2
years ago, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, season 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they did a season 1 and then they did
And
a
then
movie
the movies
and
and the season 2. Yeah. like that's not heavily advertised.
No.
That's not plastered on billboards or in Shibuya like station or anything on like the big fucking 4D looking or 3D
Yeah,
looking screen.
the
40 would be
billboards.
weird. The cat would
The
spit on
3D
you.
billboards.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah. It's not the case. And I think a lot of people, because of that, don't find it at all. Like they just don't know about it. And B, they go, well, it can't be that good, right? Like, I haven't heard of it.
So
I think that's the problem. That's the problem.
Yeah, it is. And it's also one of those things that this is a lot of people will take a look at it from the poster and just like, because when they do hear about it, they'll look at the poster and they'll be like, I don't want to watch a show about like two kids.
Yeah.
Because it is legitimately like two 9-year-olds or two 10-year-olds or something like that.
Yeah.
Like they are very young. But it is fucked up. It is very gruesome. It is a very dark show, but it is very good outside of just being a dark show. Like a lot of people loved Attack on Titan because it's a dark show. It's animation for adults. There are plenty of shows out there. There's like Death Note is one of those.
Oh,
I would say I know as much as you roll your eyes and whatever.
No.
It is a show for adults. But like this is one of those shows
Stupid
that
adults.
it doesn't seem like it should be, but it is. And it is very gruesome at times and hard to watch.
Another example of that, and I'm surprised it didn't come up for both of us now. I actually looked over and saw my little hanging canvas of it. But Odd Taxi is another one of those anime that I think it's on the cusp of being at the top of my list. I think there's definitely some pieces that would bring it down, but it's up there. And it's also something that is not at all advertised anywhere. Like my wife had to scour the depths of the internet to find the little hanging scroll that she bought me for Christmas 2 Christmases ago. Like scour. It's that plays a factor in a lot of people's minds. And it's kind of in that same vein of Made in Abyss too, where it's like it's these weird animal creatures, and how good can it be? Like it's just for furries. It's just for furries. Skip it, furries. Furry alert. Like I'm sure that went through some people's minds. They're like, hell no.
Beastars.
See, yeah, Beastars too. At least Beastars is at least a bit more advertised around, but yeah. I think that's definitely, and this is, again, we're speaking more to the Western audiences. We're speaking more to those, individuals that are watching in North America than we are in Japan and a lot of the Eastern countries. Because I watched a TikTok recently where a guy was going around a con and asking people, like, name your top 3 anime. And literally none of them listed the same 3. And it was like 7 different people. They all listed 3 different ones. And it spanned from ones that I've never even fucking heard of to, like, I think the most popular one was
Attack on Titan, Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, One Piece.
No. I think it was like, I don't think it was
My
Jujutsu
Hero
Kaisen.
Academia.
Hell no. I don't think I ever heard that one once from anyone. I didn't hear that one once from anyone. And that's, like, again, that's the difference too, right? Because as we've said on a number of our podcast episodes, you and I and a handful of others are in this small minority of people that watch a ton of anime season to season. And we're not just doing I'm watching One Piece and, the next season of Jujutsu Kaisen. Or like, I really only watch shonen, so there's nothing really out for me, so I'm going to probably skip, right? Like, we're watching a bunch of different anime across a bunch of different genres every single season.
Yep.
And so we are more in tune with what's coming out, the new potential up and coming anime as well. And we're able to kind of see how people start to gravitate towards different anime through TikTok and other, video promotions of it, like just showing clips of it, right? Like, oh my God, you got to check this out. And seeing the interactions there. We're also able just to see it from how often it gets mentioned on other social media platforms, and if people are going to start following the news on like, oh, season 2's out, right? When you start seeing people post like, oh, season 2's coming out, season 2's coming out, oh my god, they already done season 2. You're like, okay, it's hit the market finally, right?
Right.
Like that's kind of our eyes into the other areas of like, okay, is an anime going to emerge into the larger market of viewers that is again predominantly focused on what's being advertised, what can I find at Hot Topic, and you know, is Mickey D's doing a sweet collab, right? Like it's I mean it's the truth. Sorry, I don't I know it might sound crude or whatever, but it's kind of the truth.
It is. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all we really can say without going in circles
Yeah,
for this topic. But
like the hero's journey.
Oh! Yeah, we've come home now.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you all for joining us this week. We greatly appreciate the support. We will be back next week with a brand new episode. Follow us on social media at Baka&Co News on TikTok and at Baka&Co on YouTube. Until next time, Spark Triumph. We'll see you then.